As I, Sydney Thornton, sit at our anniversary dinner, I can't help but reminisce about my 5-year marriage with Cole. He was the epitome of charm and success, wrapping me in a fairytale bubble. Those initial years were like being in a rom-com where I was the star. Beautiful flowers, surprise getaways, and an unwavering devotion made our friends green with envy. I was the queen of my perfect castle, or so I thought. The facade was mesmerizing, and I drank it all in. But you know what they say about bubbles, they eventually burst. Over time, Cole became more of a mystery than a man. His late nights turned into early mornings, and his warm hugs felt more mechanical. Suddenly, he was less the man I married and more the guy who forgets to take out the trash. Even as I felt the chill creeping in, I convinced myself we were still the happy couple everyone adored. Denial? Oh, I was practically a champion. This evening, though, the air tastes different. My glass raises to toast our so-called love, but the weight of what's about to happen hangs like a storm cloud. Cole's smile. It feels like he's rehearsing for a part. His fingers fidget with uncertainty, glancing at his watch like he's debating whether to escape or not. But little does he know, tonight isn't just an anniversary dinner, it's the grand finale of our romantic tragedy. Memories flood my mind, tinged with irony, as I remember meeting Cole all those years ago. The day was crisp, the atmosphere filled with possibility. We both reached for the same dog-eared copy of Rebecca at the local bookstore, our fingers brushed, and laughter ensued. His stormy grey eyes sparkled as he asked me out in a way that made me feel like the chancellor of romance. At the time, I had no idea those very eyes would be the windows to my heartbreak. And oh, the courtship. It was a meticulously choreographed dance that, looking back, resembles more of a con job. Weekend getaways turned into lavish displays, seemingly showering me with affection while hiding his true intent. I basked in surprise picnics, each one more elaborate than the last, convinced I was the luckiest woman alive. Yet, now I realize that I was merely a pawn in a well-crafted game. When Cole proposed on that moonlit beach in Maine, I thought he was my Prince Charming. As the waves crashed and he revealed a ring he claimed was his grandmother's, I was over the moon. But my joy was short-lived. The truth came crashing down. Cole had spun a tale as intricate as the waves lapping at our feet. His sweet gestures were intricate threads in a web designed for me to fall into. Now, as I sit at the dinner table preparing for my revelation, I can't help but feel a mix of anticipation and dread. This isn't another love story, it's a metamorphosis. I've played my part for too long, clapping for the leading man without realizing he was the villain all along. The dinner plates clink as I raise my glass again, knowing that with a simple shift, this evening could change everything. Nothing is as it seems, and tonight, he'll finally see the truth. That night marked the beginning of a love story that felt more like a fairy tale than a reality. I stood in the enchanting rose garden, where my wedding was the talk of the town, draped in white roses and twinkling lights. Cole's promises danced in the air as he slipped the wedding band onto my finger, and in that moment, I truly believed we were destined for forever. Blissfully unaware, I was caught in a dreamy haze, thinking that life couldn't get any better. The first year zipped by in a whirlwind of joy, the kind that made our friends label us the perfect couple. Cole was everything I had envisioned. He was attentive, thoughtful, and always appeared in my corner, coffee in hand every morning, with heartfelt gifts adorning our anniversaries. Our life sparkled with celebration after celebration, and I happily drank the Kool-Aid, convinced we could conquer anything life threw our way. Yet, whispers of unease began to creep in. Just as I was ready to dismiss any doubts, the cracks in our fairy tale started to widen. Cole was still there, of course, but his smiles seemed less genuine, almost rehearsed. The late-night work meetings began to stack up like those romantic comedies, charming at first, but eventually overwhelming. Deep inside, a voice muttered that maybe, just maybe, my Mr. Perfect wasn't quite so perfect. But I silenced that nagging thought, convincing myself that smooth sailing was just around the corner. Then, one fateful Tuesday, everything changed. In a spirited attempt to tidy up Cole's office, something he generally disapproved of, I discovered a hidden drawer in his antique desk. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it to reveal a burgundy leather folder, filled to the brim with documents. Bank statements, property deeds, and then, the photos. Women, each sporting a cheerful smile, looked strikingly like me, existing frozen in joyful wedding moments with my husband of only a year. Each one, however, bore a different last name. The shock zinged through me like a jolt of electricity as the horrifying dots began to connect. Charlotte, Elizabeth, Marie each had vanished, leaving their lives and wealth behind. Cole's insistence on joint accounts and his subtle nudges for me to change my will all made sinister sense now. Was he after my wealth too? I sank deeper into the chair, the rain providing a morose soundtrack to my shattered world. That night, I plastered on a smile and acted like everything was fine during dinner. I was a veritable actress in my own life, while inside, my heart turned to stone. The love story I thought was real morphed into a web of deceit. The following days were filled with meticulous studying of those documents, piecing together the puzzle that revealed Cole as a master manipulator with a pattern that I was determined to disrupt. He wouldn't get away with this. Determined to reclaim my narrative, I plotted my revenge with precision. The woman who once trusted him with everything was gone, the new version was armed with knowledge and grit. So, I enlisted the help of Sandra Pierce, a private investigator I'd encountered through a friend. With her on board, I was ready to turn the tables and make sure that Cole's days of deception were numbered. The sweet taste of vengeance filled my spirit, and I was ready to reclaim my life, one meticulous step at a time. Sandra was the perfect undercover agent, slipping into the role of an unsuspecting business partner while she played sleuth. She was methodical, leaving no stone unturned, and Cole didn't stand a chance against her charms. As she trailed him, Sandra uncovered a world of deception and betrayal, each shocking revelation being a welcome surprise. Apparently, those business trips weren't all they were cracked up to be, filled with lawyers, shady bankers, and questionable associates instead of meetings about spreadsheets and profits. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together, I couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that Cole had been living a double life. The more Sandra revealed, the more I began to see how skillfully he had woven a web of manipulation, ensnaring innocent women, all of whom were just pawns in his twisted game. They thought they were stepping into a fairy tale, when in reality, they were all just unwitting characters in Cole's grand deception, and I was just the last player on the board. Fueled by Sandra's discoveries, I took to my laptop like a detective on a mission. I spent countless hours combing through every bite of information I could get my hands on: bank statements, property records, and insurance claims. I wouldn't let myself become another victim in his long line of deceitful escapades. The adrenaline coursing through me was a potent catalyst. I wasn't just regrouping, I was plotting a comeback that would lead to his downfall and vindicate all the lives he'd ruined. In the midst of my investigations, I played my part. I may have felt like a Pandora's box ready to explode, but to Cole, I was a doting wife. While he thought he was the maestro conducting his symphony of lies, I was secretly documenting the symptoms of his deceit woven into my life: fatigue, dizziness, the instincts that screamed at me to run. I was letting him feel his grip on me, while inside, I was crafting a plan he could never foresee. With my own skills in finance, I began to poke around his business dealings. It wasn't long before I located his offshore accounts and whispered secrets. I was turning his safe havens of ill-gotten gains into my arsenal. The more I fished, the more I reeled in examples of his betrayal. Meanwhile, I built up my tolerance to the substances he'd been slipping into my tea, ensuring I wouldn't be caught unaware. The elusive cat-and-mouse game was thrilling, but sustaining the facade was taking its toll. Who would guess the sweet wife was plotting a stylish coup? As I tucked myself in each night, a smile creased my face. Under the surface, my indignation was boiling, the perfect wife, playing to his tune, while simultaneously orchestrating his downfall. Each kiss goodnight was a reminder of my impending victory. I counted down the days, every wink and nudge he sent my way only reinforced my resolve to turn this around. The calm I showcased masked the turmoil within as I collected evidence, one clever move at a time. Every single detail needed careful consideration. I established hidden accounts and stashed away small sums of money, ensuring I kept a steady hold on my resources. I wasn't just seeking revenge. This was my life, my dignity, my future on the line. And when the moment finally arrived, I would need the precision of a surgical strike. The evening I walked into the restaurant, the thrill surged through me like electricity. This was it. I could see it in Cole's eyes, a confident smile plastered to his lips as he obliviously sipped on his drink, utterly unaware that tonight would mark the beginning of his unraveling. There we were, cozied up at table 23, the exact spot where, 5 years ago, Cole had dazzled me with his charm. The chandeliers twinkled like stars above us, illuminating the wine glasses and setting the scene for what felt like a romantic rendezvous. Each tick of the clock echoed in my head as I anticipatorily awaited the moment to put my plan into action. Cole, with his usual nonchalance, ordered the wine, completely unaware of the truth brewing just beneath the surface. As he nostalgically recounted our very first night here, I could barely contain my inner smirk. Gone was that inexperienced girl who sipped timidly on champagne. I had morphed into a woman armed with wit and wisdom. With every clink of the glasses, remnants of a naïve past dissolved away. The waiter poured the wine, and I felt a victorious shiver. This was the culmination of months of meticulous preparation. This time, I was steering the ship. Taking a sip of our wine, I maintained eye contact, scrutinizing every shift in Cole's demeanor. There it was, a flicker of tension as he savored the vintage, oblivious to the fact that the very drink he celebrated was a catalyst to his downfall. He basked in the illusion of control while I marveled at how beautifully the tables had turned. His practiced ease was my cue, but inside, I was bursting with the glee of my hidden triumph. As the appetizer arrived, we danced around mundane topics, Cole's nervousness becoming increasingly apparent. The way he checked his watch made it clear that the calm facade of confidence was slipping. Little did he know, every anxious glance, every forced smile, was a breadcrumb leading him directly into the very trap I had laid out. The irony wasn't lost on me. He'd always been the puppeteer, but tonight, I was the one holding the strings. When the main course landed on the table, I couldn't help but notice the quivering in his hand as he cut into his steak. This man, who prided himself on precision, was beginning to unravel before my eyes. The facade he built was cracking, revealing the underlying panic that rattled his carefully honed composure. I relished the moment. His thoughts were straying to uncharted territories of guilt and fear, and I was here, ready to pull the rug from under him. Time seemed to warp as the evening dragged on. Each lingering moment felt heavy with anticipation. With each sip of wine, I felt a surge of power. Every word exchanged was a calculated move on my chessboard, and Cole had no clue he was a pawn in my game. I could feel his watchful gaze darting over me, but I held my ground, a serene smile plastered across my face as I orchestrated this symphony of chaos. Finally, dessert arrived, and the air thickened with suspense. Cole looked like he might faint as he poked at his dish, the color draining from his face. I unleashed a cold smile, void of affection, watching the panic paint itself over him. He was spiraling, desperately trying to piece together this mystery wearing the face of his loving wife. But little did he know, the puzzle was already complete, and my plan was moving forward like clockwork. As I raised my glass for a toast to unforgettable memories, time seemed to freeze. The sweetness of the moment hung in the air with a hint of betrayal. I took that first sip, feeling euphoria envelop me. Cole thought he had played his cards right, but I had outmaneuvered him at every turn. Satisfaction coursed through me as I savored the taste of victory, knowing that tonight, everything he held dear was about to unravel. Tonight was the night Cole would finally face the music, and I could barely suppress a smirk as I observed him wobbling like a toddler taking its first steps. Talk about sweet revenge. After years of feeling like a puppet in his manipulative game, it was as if the universe had conspired just for me. He always held the power, but tonight? Tonight, I had the upper hand, and boy, was it exhilarating. Despite the confidence I felt, Cole looked like a ghost, his complexion a lovely shade of I just realized I'm in deep trouble. His attempts at speech came out slurred and incoherent, as if his brain had decided to take a vacation without him. There was panic etched in his eyes, the fear of an impending storm he had kicked off himself. The door handle was begging for relief from his trembling fingers. He could practically feel the consequences hot on his heels. My heart raced in glee as I scrutinized the evidence I had painstakingly gathered, like a detective with a killer case. It was all their years of lies, his betrayal neatly arranged like a bad magician's tricks. I had been the master planner, orchestrating this moment while Cole blindly believed he was the king of the game. He had underestimated me, assuming I was just a pawn. He was blissfully unaware that I had been 3 steps ahead the whole time. As we approached that secluded overlook, I felt like a cat playing with a mouse, savoring the moment. I had maintained my cool while plotting his downslide, but was that smoldering anger bubbling up inside me? He had not only trampled on my life but also wreaked havoc on countless others. Tonight was the night where justice would act as my cheerleader, and I was ready to give him a show he'd never forget. I brought the car to a gentle halt, turning to face him. Gone was the dapper man of confidence. Instead, he sat there, a disheveled shadow of his former self. His suit, once the epitome of sophistication, looked like it had survived a hurricane. The desperation in his eyes screamed for answers while my heart sang triumphantly. I was finally holding the reins, and it felt electrifying. From my bag, I produced the ultimate trump card, a USB drive that contained the staggering evidence of his various misdeeds. All the deeds and dirt he orchestrated, having himself as the villain behind it all, were contained in that little piece of technology. It felt surreal to be holding the damning proof of his elaborate lies, ready to dismantle the empire of deceit he had delicately constructed. This was it, the moment everything would change. Next came his feeble attempts to speak again, his voice quieter than a whisper in a library. But what was there left to say? Did he honestly think I would grant him a moment of sympathy? I've heard all his pathetic excuses, all his charming manipulation tactics, and I was done. Every lie finally laid before me. His future was sealed, and he had no one to blame but the reflection staring back at him. Every line had been drawn, every chance given, and through all of it, he had chosen to remain ensnared in his webs of deceit. Little did he realize, as he sat there unraveling, I had the power in my hands to set the record straight. His charade was over, and my victory, sweet as chocolate, was finally within reach. It was the end of the line for Cole, and I was ready to collect my victory. I couldn't help but glance over at the mess of his belongings sprawled across the passenger seat, especially his phone. Oh, the secrets it held. Cole knew the stakes. His poker face had crumbled long ago. No need for me to spill the beans when the evidence was about to do all the talking in the most dramatic way possible. As those police lights twinkled like a disco party in the rearview mirror, I dialed down the emotions. I had perfected the act of the grieving wife, with my crystal-clear tears for show. Honestly, I could win awards for my performance. The officers had no idea they were stepping into Hollywood as they approached. I had orchestrated this moment like a symphony, letting the whispers of fate guide my hand toward ultimate justice. That night at the police station was one for the history book. I strolled out with an air of triumph, while Cole's carefully constructed empire began to tumble like a pack of cards. The ghosts of his ex-wives must have been high-fiving from beyond the veil. The fabricated family, the facade of happiness, everything was on the brink of collapse, and I couldn't help but feel a smirk tugging at my lips. Justice, sweet nectar that it was finally within my grasp. Strength is a funny thing. For ages, I had played the dutiful wife, caught in a whirlwind of love muddled with sacrifice. But now, empowered and unyielding, I could see through the smoke and mirrors he conjured. The ashes of the life we'd built together now lay at my feet, and oh, how liberating it felt. Pain had shaped this journey, but here I was, rising from it like a phoenix with a plan. Colorado's finest may still be piecing together the scandal, but I had nothing to fear anymore. Cole believed himself to be invincible, but I showed him the universe always has a way of balancing the scales. Each lie he told me was a nail in his own coffin, and there were no more escape routes, no rabbit holes left to dive into. His empire was crashing, and oh, how the mighty would fall. Looking ahead, I felt the winds of change rustling through my soul. This was a full circle moment. The curtains had dropped on Cole's chapter, but my story was just kicking off. I could almost hear the opening notes of my new adventure playing in the background. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be mine. Cole was merely a stepping stone, a lesson learned wrapped in some wild drama. Life feels vibrant again, and I can't help but marvel at the journey that brought me here. With newfound fervor, I'm ready to seize the reins and carve out the future I've been denied for so long. This isn't just a new chapter, it's a complete rewrite of the narrative I thought was set in stone. So, buckle up, world. My story has just begun, and I promise it's going to be the ride of a lifetime. Don't forget to subscribe to